Welcome to Auxano Lounge, where we sit down with fascinating people with fascinating stories focused on mindset and things that we can use to take our game, to take our life to the next level. I'm here with my co-host, Ron Iosa, who's going to set us up and introduce today's fascinating guest. Ron, take it away, buddy.
Fascinating. That's an understatement for who we've got with us today. So this gentleman rises up out of Serbia, fights out of Lodi, and ends up in Thailand. Couple different places. He's a 3-time world champ. He's a champ of a stadium. Now that's something different. We don't know that in America, so I won't even pretend to try to name that. I'm going to let you do that. So welcome, Ognjen Topic.
Thank you guys for having me. Like Ron was saying, 3-time world champion and Omnoy Stadium champion, which is one of the 4 main stadiums in Thailand that you would want to have a title in.
So, by the way, so it's Ognjen. A lot of people mess up your name. We know you as Ogi. How do you like to be approached? What do you like people to call you?
It's Ognjen, but to be honest with you, I don't care what you call me. Titles in my life don't really matter much unless it's a title from Thailand.
All right.
It's about what you achieve, not about what your title is. You know, so for me, I don't really care what you call me.
All right, good enough then. I won't mess this up.
Love it. So take us back.
Yeah.
Right? Let's bring it from the beginning. For those of you who don't know who you are and what your path is or was, that's one of the most fascinating parts of this. So you're born actually in Bosnia. And then, as Ron mentioned, you achieve one of your ultimate life goals, which is winning a title in Thailand. Can you give us that bio so that everybody listening can see in a relatively small time frame what that bio looked like from Bosnia to Thailand? Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm born in Bosnia in 1986. 1992, we have a war in Bosnia, and we have 3 different religions in the country, so none of the religions were getting along, so we had to flee. Pretty much we fled on the last possible day that we were able to flee, and we ended up in Serbia. From Serbia, I lived there from 1992 until 1995. My father was working here with his brother, construction, and he was playing the immigration lottery, and he wins the lottery, and we end up in America. So from 95 until about, I would say about, since I was second grade when I came in 1995, until about 6th grade, I never went out with any friends. I didn't have many friends. So those are like your prime social development years.
Yeah.
So I had to figure ways out to.
Was it a language thing? Like,
I think it might have been a language thing. Kids maybe thought that I was weird, and
did you speak any other language when you got here?
No, I didn't speak at all, neither me or my sister, so we had to learn. And plus, yeah, that was another thing. I was taken out. I had to go to ESL classes instead of, being in regular classes with friends, and I was left back as well. Most kids are always left back when they immigrate here, one grade. And so I didn't have friends, I never went out, so I had to figure out ways to entertain myself. That was one of the ways, was through my art. I'm a graphic designer as well. That's what I went to school for. And then another way was when I turned 14 years old, just about 14, I started watching a lot of boxing on ESPN. And that's what I wanted to do. I fell in love with the way those guys moved, and it was just a beautiful sport to me. That's what I wanted to do. So I tell my father, I want to do boxing. He said, absolutely not. I didn't bring you to this country to be somebody's punching bag. And I understood that.
Now, your father has some experience in athletics, right? So,
Yeah, he was a professional athlete as well. He was a professional soccer player for Partizan, which is one of the 2 teams in Serbia for soccer.
Okay.
So he's been doing it his whole life. He's 65 now, and he's still doing it. So over 40 years, he's, training and playing. So, okay, I understood that. So I said, if you don't let me do boxing, let me do Taekwondo, because there's no punching to the head. It's just, kicking. So he lets me do Taekwondo. I did that from 14 until 18. But throughout that whole time, I knew it wasn't realistic. It's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go in there and I wanted to fight. So I turn on ESPN again, and I'm watching, my regular kickboxing fights that I usually watch. And I see this sport, which looks completely different from boxing and kickboxing. You know, the way the fighters were moving, how sturdy they were. I saw this guy's legs; they were like tree trunks, and I think he was Asian. So I'm assuming that he was Thai. So I fall in love with that. And the announcer says, "This is called Muay Thai." I had no idea what it was at that time. I'm 18. This is 2005. So I go online. I find the school in Lodi. And I start training there from 18 until I think it was about a year. And I'm thinking like, you know, I need to fight. I'm not doing this sport just to train. The ultimate goal is to fight. But in my mind, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about my parents. What are they going to do? You know? And when I first started the sport, I told my dad, you know, I found this new sport. It's not the Taekwondo. This is after after my 18th birthday. And he says, "Oh, what is it?" And I tell him, "Oh, it's like kickboxing, but you can do knees and elbows." And he's like, "Are you insane? No, you're not doing that." And he was much more angry than what I'm relating to you guys. So I tell him, "All right, I'm not going to fight. I'm just going to train." But of course, my whole goal was to fight. So I start training. So he lets me do that. I start training. And then after about a year, I mean, I was ready to fight after a few months. You know, I already had that inside me. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about how am I supposed to hide this from my parents? You know, what if like something happens to me and I come back home and I got a broken face? What am I supposed to say to them?
Not uncommon in that sport, by the way.
Right, exactly.
It's hard to get through a whole fight with at least a mark.
Exactly.
How old are you at this point? Are you 18? Are you 19?
I think I'm 19 at this point, yeah.
And you're living home?
Yeah, I'm living with my parents.
Yeah.
And so I'm underneath their roof and I respect their rules and their laws. And my parents mean everything to me, especially with what they've given to me. But just knowing and just seeing them, how much struggle they went through in Serbia, they built the whole house by themselves. What did my father know about building a house? Absolutely nothing. He was an athlete. It's like telling me right now to build a house. So I appreciated all that stuff. But again, I have my own life. I don't want to have any regrets. I have to do what I need to do. So about a year and a half passes by, and I'm like, I got to fight. So I take my first fight. I do extremely well. And the only person that knew was my sister, my cousin, and nobody else knew online. We only had Facebook at that time. I was very secretive with what went on. As soon as somebody posted up a picture or something like that, I was in their DMs and told them, please take this off. I explained to them my situation. Everybody was always cool about it. And nothing absolutely went on YouTube either. If something like popped up one of my fights, again, it was the same thing. I would send them a message, please take it off. I explained to my situation, and that was it. So about 2 years passes by in my amateur career, and I'm already starting to build up a name for myself. And I'm fighting in New York City, Friday night fights. 2
years passes by.
Yeah.
Your father still doesn't know?
He has no idea.
Oh, my goodness.
And Bill was actually going to some of these fights as well. So my cousin, I don't know what he was doing, how he found one of my fights, but he finds it on YouTube. And it wasn't like one of my best fights either. Calls up my father, and he was living in England at this time. Calls up my father, tells him, look what your son is doing. You brought him to this country so he can make something of himself, and he's out there fighting. And to my father, fighting, he was also a fight fan. He liked kickboxing, he liked boxing. He just didn't want his son doing it, which again, I understand. So to him, fighting is like, you tried to work at McDonald's, you failed. You couldn't even hold that job. You tried to work here, you couldn't even hold that job. Now you have no other way to make money besides using your fists. That's how he thinks about fighting. And again, I understand that. My father, of course, he gets extremely angry, and we stopped talking for 4 months. So now we're like two ghosts walking past each other like this. I don't say anything to him. He doesn't say anything
Still
to me.
under the same roof.
Right. In the same house. Correct.
Yeah.
Man.
And because I have an ego, he has an ego. He's an athlete. I'm an athlete, you know?
Yeah.
So after about those 4 months, neither one of us like comes up to each other and says, hey, you know what? Let's just start talking. We don't have that type of relationship. And most people from Eastern Europe don't. We just kind of like start talking again. I forgot how it happened, but I remember we just started talking, and we don't bring up fighting anymore. So I know they're my parents. They're not stupid. Of course, they know what I'm doing. But we just don't talk about it anymore. So, and also, if let's say those fights were on a Friday night, if I would get like a mark or a bruise on my eye, I would call up a friend. I would say, hey, can I sleep over tonight? He would let me sleep over. The next day is Saturday. I would go to train, come back from training. My mom would say, what happened to your eye? I was just from training. Don't worry about it. That's how my life was for those years. So another about year or 2 year passes by from my amateur career, and I'm continuing fighting. And now I turn pro. This is like 2011. So I have my first fight. Again, I do well. My second fight. And now I'm thinking like, I can't do this anymore. I have to tell my parents what I'm doing, and this is not like a fluke, you know, this is something that I love doing. So it was January 7th. It was our Christmas day, Orthodox. I set them both down, and I remember being upstairs in my room, and I'm pacing across the room floor, and I'm going in the closet, coming back out, going in the closet, looking at things that I can like just take with myself, because I was prepared to just walk out right there. I was prepared for my father to say, pack your stuff up, get out. I never want to see you again.
And you saved this conversation for Christmas.
Yeah. I don't know why I chose it, but I think it was just
Perfect day.
Yeah, I think it was just like a good time to do it. So I'm like pacing, and I'm thinking, what can I bring with myself? What is my plan? I had no plan. It was just the only thing that I wanted to do was live my life the way I wanted to live it. No regrets. And I was going to do what I was going to do. Nobody's going to stop me. I don't care how much I love my parents. Nothing's going to get in my way. So I go downstairs. I sit both of them down. I explain to them my situation, that this is what I'm going to do. And if you're not going to be okay with this and support me, then this is the last moment that you're ever going to see me. And again, I gave him an ultimatum, and I was prepared to walk out right then and there.
Wow.
I had no idea where I was going to go. I just had my car that I pay for, a couple of things that I can bring with me. I knew I was going to figure it out, because this is how much I loved doing what I was going to do. Thankfully, my father said he understood that, what this means to me, because again, he brought up soccer and how much he loves it, and he understands what this was. So he was okay with it. And again, I didn't need their support. I don't need anybody's support. Whether you support me or not, the job's going to get done, which is that ultimate goal. I just needed them to be okay with it. So I don't have to think about when I'm fighting somebody with 5 times, 6 times the amount of fights that I have. Now I got to think about what's going to happen when this guy cuts me with an elbow. What am I supposed to do to tell my parents? That's all I needed, just for them to know that this is what I was doing. And so that's what it was. After that, I began continuously fighting. I finished college. One reason was for them. Another reason was for me as well, because it was just another challenge for me to have. And that was a tough, difficult time to go by, because I had to be a full-time fighter, professional to me, even though I was an amateur at that time while I was going to college. To me, I was still a professional, and that was my main thing. Then I had to work.
Not to interrupt you there, but just looking at, I guess, Muay Thai a little deeper, and we'll get into this in a minute. At this point, your mind is set on being pro, and when you step into pro, especially if you have a passion to actually pursue this in Thailand. At that age, you're what, like 19, 20 now, we're saying?
Maybe like 22, 23, something like that.
Okay, so the main fighters in Thailand that mentally your dream is to be in the ring with, like, how many fights do these guys have already compiled, some of them by this age?
Yeah, they usually start at age 7, and by the time, and they fight in the country. So that's when they're developing their style and gaining experience. And then one day when they get purchased by these gyms, these camps from Bangkok, which is where the biggest scene is for Muay Thai, they're about 18 years old, and they have like about 200 fights already. So they're fighting, sometimes they're fighting 2-3 times a day. Number one, to support their family, because they're making about 100 baht, 200 baht per fight. 100 baht is about $3. Wow. So that's how much they're making.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And so
Go back there for 1 second. One
Yeah.
second. And they're fighting sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. So they're making $6 to $9 a day to support their family, you
Correct.
said. So the quick aside, because I heard it, I have to ask, what does $6 get you in that country for these kids and these families? What is
Yeah, the minimum wage over there is about like $9 per day.
per day?
Right. So you can eat a full plate of food for about $1.50 now. You know, so it's not that expensive, but again, you know, you're not going to be living a comfortable lifestyle.
Right. Now, so, all right. So that was that quick aside just to show why it was so important for you to be focused on training. Even though you're an amateur, you've made this commitment in your mind.
Yeah.
You want to be an elite level fighter. So there's a lot of experience that you got to make up in this time.
Right.
So trying to finish college, trying to, you know, pursue filling that gap on experience is a challenging one. So I just wanted to ask a couple of those questions to see, you know, where exactly you were, you know, mentally in preparing for that next step and why that was so daunting in that moment.
Yeah, I knew I was already 10 years behind. So I had all this time to make up because they start at 7, 8. I started at 18. So as far as the focus goes, it's not just about, you know, when I tell people to be focused, they just think like, okay, I just need to show up and do the work. No, it's much more than that. You have to think about, let's say if you're training with a partner, right? Sparring, you have to think about what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and then what your partner's doing right, what your partner's doing wrong. Then when you're alone by yourself, when you're shadow boxing, you got to be, it's as if you put a camera on the outside and you have eyes on the outside. So now you're thinking not only how am I throwing these techniques and punches, but how does this technique look? Am I dropping my hand down? Am I exposing my ribs? You know, you're constantly thinking about all these things because, again, I didn't have that experience. I had to make up for that experience all up here. Then when I would go to sleep at night, I would be dreaming that I'm fighting. And I'm not dreaming like I'm in this a weird state. I'm just doing it for practice reasons. And so I'm thinking to myself like, okay, well, I can train throughout the day, but then what am I doing when I'm sleeping? I can still be thinking about what I'm doing when I'm sleeping. And then there was a study in tennis, and they said that they had tennis players hitting the ball physically, and then they had tennis players who they just told them, just when you go to sleep, we're gonna attach all these accessories on you, and we're gonna read your mind, but we still want you to just dream as if you're playing the game. And they said the same muscle fibers were firing. So then to me, that was like perfect. Now I can go to sleep and I can still get practice out of this. I can still have my muscle fibers firing.
Does that work for me working out? Can I do that?
Well, actually, if you remember when I used to own a deli and Bill used to work with me there, right? That's how we got together. So I used to dream about ham and cheese sandwiches, and I would literally wake up and be like, I can't get away from this thing. I'm thinking about ham and cheese sandwiches. Maybe that was good, and I didn't even realize it, Og.
Meanwhile, he's doing it on purpose. That's fascinating. I never heard that.
Yeah.
That is wild. Unfortunately, I don't think it would work for me in the gym, but it's the mental side, right? All right. So
Can I ask a question before we go to the next one?
Yeah.
I just have to because it goes to the beginning, so I want to make sure I get it out of the way. You said when you were young, you were watching boxing and you liked it. Do you remember who those guys were for you? Because everybody has that, right? You know, for your era in basketball, right? It was Jordan, and you know today the kids it's LeBron. Who was it for you as a boxer?
For the Friday night fights, it was usually up and coming fighters. So I don't remember them, but I remember it was Teddy Alice was one of the announcers because back then he was still announcing the fights, or they would play like reruns, and then I would be listening to him as well. But yeah, that was that.
So you were pulling for the underdog.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you're there, you're battling, you know, mentally, physically to fill that gap. You're finished up college. Now what?
Now I'm working. I'm a graphic designer. That's what I went to college for. And now I'm working a 9-to-5 job, my career job, and I love that job. But then I'm also training 5 to 9. My whole day was just filled with just work, you know? And again, I'm doing this for a couple of years. And then I just say to myself, I can't prepare for these guys who are like have 300 fights, and I have what 10. I had about like 25 at the time, 20 amateur, and then 5 pro. And I'm fighting these guys who are, stadium champions back in Thailand. So I had to make a career move. And 2013, I go to Thailand and I spend a month there. And the first day I go there, I say to myself, man, I'm going to miss this place. First day, because I know this is what I love doing. And so I come back and now it's 2014. So that was in 2013, December, January. I speak to my my bosses who are also very supportive, and they were cool. They understood what I was doing, and I told them that I have to make this move, and it was extremely difficult. It was extremely scary because I was making okay money, and now I'm going from making this money to absolutely zero. There was never a plan B. It was just one plan. That was it, and I knew that was gonna happen.
I love that.
Wild.
Yeah. And you know what else you just said before? So for the listeners out there, you worked from 9 to 5 and then trained from 5 to 9, right?
Right.
So the guy in gal who says, I got CrossFit tonight, I'm working. I worked out for an hour and a half. It was crazy. Or my son's a baseball player, right? I'm swinging and throwing. I was out there for 2 hours. And I hear you say work a full day and then put in 4 hours in the gym, which at the time was a lot because of your work schedule.
Right.
How did that transition when you went all in? What was your day of training like then?
Oh, it was much easier because then I could split those 4 hours into 2 sessions. So now I'm doing morning session and then an evening session when I went to Thailand. So it was a lot easier.
Okay, so you would train for 2 hours in the morning, train for 2 hours at night?
Yeah.
What would the middle of the day look like in that situation for a guy like you?
Rest as much as possible. That's the best drug that you can have is rest. Yeah.
Nice.
No caffeine, no amount of caffeine, no amount of energy drinks will ever get to what your body can naturally do when you can rest, and I don't get a lot of rest either. I'm a very bad sleeper. So sometimes you're just laying in bed, not being able to fall asleep. You have anxiety because you're thinking, how am I going to make my next dollar? What am I going to do with this? What if I can't win this title? I mean, that went on for so long, for like 8 years it went on, since I had that goal to win a title in Thailand. Until I won that.
Quick. So, and this is somewhere I didn't plan on going, but like, what does it look like, right? So we're here in America. You still live in Thailand the majority of the time. You're going back in a couple weeks, I hear. What does it look like? Like you now living there, when you go there, what does it look like? The place you live, the gym you train, how many people are there? Is it a camaraderie? Like what, if you had to say in 3 minutes what it actually looks like, so we can visualize to live in Bangkok and train at a gym for a living, what is that lifestyle?
Yeah, they're very small apartment places, and it's nothing that you would be happy about living in. It's sometimes you have cockroaches in your room.
Roommates.
Exactly right. It's not that clean, but it is what it is. You have your air conditioning, you got a bed to sleep on. What more do you need? That's how I see it.
Tempur-Pedic mattress?
Absolutely not. Very far from that.
All right. And then the gym, what does it look like? Like how many guys are there?
The gym, we have about 40 to 50 fighters in the
fighters,
camp.
like active fighters,
right? Active fighters.
Training.
They're not all at the gym at the same time. Sometimes when they have a fight, Thais look at fighting as literally a job. So they're not doing what I was doing to be focused. They get their fight out of the way, then they go back home, spend time like a month, 2 months, sometimes 3 months with their family. They're not doing anything revolving around Muay Thai. Then they get a call again. They come a month beforehand. They start preparing. They get into shape, and then they fight again.
And these are top level fighters,
right? But they can get away with that because they have so much experience since they started from a young age. I didn't have that, so I had to be extremely focused with what I was doing.
So somebody like that, if you can, let's touch on the finances of that. So somebody comes in and they fight, and then they go home for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Now this is Thailand, and you just explained before to us that minimum wage is about $9 a day.
Right.
So that person who gets to go home for 1 to 3 months, how much did they win? What was the purse on a fight like that for them?
Yeah, for high level fighters, they can fight up to about $3,000, $4,000 at that time per fight, and
which is money there.
That's a good,
exactly.
yeah, that's a good amount for Thailand. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you do that, 7 times a year, you're doing pretty well.
And some of them too will train there and then fight outside, right? Like you fought one
Right.
championship, some big venues in different parts of the world. So these guys will be training there and then going and fighting in Singapore for a one title and stuff. So then I think those disparities of income are probably even bigger.
Yeah, now they're making a lot more money.
Right.
Fighting with big companies like that.
Right. Awesome. All right. So you're there, you're training every day. Let's come through your professional fight and go into the next level there, all the way to when you held that title up in Thailand. What did that fast track look like?
I won the 3 titles, but in my mind, that wasn't it. I just don't feel good about that, And
These are world titles.
World
by the
titles,
way.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Not
Because-
in Thailand, the world titles, right? Those were
These are just in the world, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so I went to Ireland. I fought an English guy, so the best in England. I beat him. I beat the best Irish guy as well for the title here in America. And then I went to Mexico, beat their best guy for the world title. And they're good titles, but again, to me, it's not enough. And then I had a bunch of titles here in America as well. And then, you would have people saying, oh, you're the best in America. But to me, it was like disrespectful to say that. I'm just the best in America. I don't want to be the best in America. America's too small for me. I need to be the best in the world. And if there's life on Mars, then guess what? I want to be the best on Mars as well. That's the mentality that I had. But again, the ultimate goal was to be a champion in Thailand. And so I remember watching these fights on videotape, buying them here in one of the grocery stores. I would buy them like every week. And they had like a huge wall of all these videotapes in a Thai grocery store. I would pick a few, I would watch them, and I would just be mesmerized with like these fighters, and I would be like, this is like that's what I need to do.
And they're, comparatively speaking, like if you're a legendary champion in Thailand, what does that translate to from an American perspective? Like, is that like, walking into a grocery store and, LeBron James is there? Like,
Right.
where is that association?
It's not that big, even in Thailand. Now with bigger promotions like One Championship, yeah, they're becoming bigger superstars, in Thailand. But even then, if you're like, and these are all televised fights. I mean, I fought on regular televised TV over there, but they just, especially kids nowadays, they don't care about the fighting as much, So it's mainly the older guys that like that. Here, yeah, they're appreciated more in America because I think it's like that. I don't know what the phenomenon is, but you don't have that readily available to you. So when a famous Thai fighter comes to America, you treat him like they're God, like it's like he's gold.
And yet in Thailand, it's still not this massive notoriety type thing.
Yeah, I mean it's still their national sport, so it's like baseball here,
Right.
but it's losing a lot because again, the kids, they all want to be soccer players over there. No kid
Yeah.
wants to be fighting for money, and they don't have to anymore. It's the country's doing a lot better. So yeah, it's losing that aspect about sport.
Interesting. It's funny. I think that's actually happening around the world, to be honest with you, right? Like if you look at like on a local level, right here in America, here in New Jersey, football was always, so big and baseball was always so big. And yet you do start to hear more and more about soccer, where for years we always thought about soccer as, oh man, that's such a, right? It's a lame sport. And now it's becoming this world attraction.
Well, also it's YouTube, people want to be YouTubers or TikTokers. And that's becoming a legitimate job now.
Making plenty of money.
They can make good money. And a lot of people do this stuff because they want to have popularity. For them, it's more about the popularity contest instead of doing what you need to do. For me, I never cared about that. It was just take away all my stuff. I don't care about that. It's about how I feel about what I've achieved. That's the only thing that mattered to me.
Yeah, I love it. And you said that before, like it didn't matter. Like here, I was world champ, so and so, but it didn't matter until I got to Thailand,
Right.
and I was a champ there. And you know, if you played baseball in a South American country, if you played baseball in Serbia, and you were like, I'm
Exactly.
the best baseball player in Serbia,
Exactly.
yeah, but you're not in the MLB,
Exactly.
right? You didn't play for the Yankees,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that was
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
so you got those world titles. You're not fulfilled, right? What came next?
I'm now back in Thailand full time, so I'm living there. And this is about 2018 when I went there again. And again, I'm working up the ranks. I'm fighting at the major stadiums. And then 2021, I get a message from the manager while I was back here visiting my parents. And he says, when you come back next, you're going to get a title shot. And that was just, it was incredible to me, you know, just to be even recognized, to be able to fight for that title is huge. You know, now I'm literally one of those guys that I used to watch on the tape.
Wow.
And that was just an incredible moment for me.
Well, and the
then-
rarity of this, right? Like
yeah.
you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this isn't my specialty. I've studied up on this a decent amount for this too. But you have foreigners that can compete for titles in Thailand a lot of times at weight classes where there might not be a lot of native Thai fighters, right?
Yeah.
You're in one of the most competitive weight classes in the sport. So you're in there with the best of the best in the world. And had there ever been a foreign champion at that level in one of those stadiums?
Yeah, not in my weight class. No.
Wow.
It's usually like 140 up to 140 pounds is the competitive. Maybe like 145. There's still good fighters there. And then anything above that, yeah, I mean, you can run into some good guys, but there's way less. You know, the pool is anywhere from 115 pounds up until about 140, 145. And I was fighting at 130.
Wow.
135, I'm sorry. And
You were cutting weight to get there?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
What do you
Yeah.
normally walk around at?
about 147.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give or take a pound.
Yeah. Depending on how much pizza I ate.
There you go. So you get that call.
Yeah, I get the message, and now I'm still in America. I can't wait to get back to Thailand. I get to Thailand.
2018, by the way?
No, this is now 2022.
2022?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
This is your first
2022.
shot at a title
right.
in Thailand. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm training for a fight. They tell me, okay, it's going to be in about 4 weeks, maybe a little longer. So they give me a good date. And in Thailand, nothing is really set. You know, these fights come left and right. They come out of nowhere, you know, and you just have to be always prepared. And so they give me that date, and I'm preparing for an orthodox fighter, which means he's a righty. Out of nowhere, the manager comes up to me and says, hey, if you want to fight for that title, you can fight for it, but it would have to be this upcoming week. So I had literally 3 days to prepare for that fight. But
And was
I
it a
had,
southpaw? You just said
and
the
it was
other
a
guy.
southpaw, correct. It was a southpaw. So everything that I was training for the other guy, I had to change, and I had to literally do within a couple of days.
Oh
I
my
had 3
goodness.
days to train for this fight. I was still training regularly, but I wasn't preparing for a fight. You know, I'm just going to the gym just to stay at a certain level. So I'm thinking in my mind, I have to take this risk, because if I don't know if I'm going to get another chance. You know, I don't know if they're going to give me another chance or a shot. So I take the fight, and I'm feeling good. And I go in there, I fight really well. And the fight is a draw. So for some reason, I almost knew that there was going to be a barricade for me for that fight, because my whole life I've had all these like challenges and barricades. And to me, I literally just shrugged my shoulder and I said, it's all right. I know I'm going to get another shot, because I know what people saw, and I definitely won the fight. And then the gym owner, the boss, he made a big, huge ordeal about the fight, about, you know, that they stole the fight from me and that I should have won. And that was very big too, because, you know, this is a Thai protecting a foreigner, and the foreigner was fighting against the Thai, you know? So why wasn't he protecting his countrymen. So he really came correct, and he was protecting me because I'm under his roof as well. And of course, he was going to make money off me as well because they gamble on these fights too.
And that's a big part of this, right? Which I mean, I'm not saying that does influence these decisions, but you know, you step in there, nobody really being that competitive in that weight class against a Thai national. I got to imagine there was probably a lot of money on the other side of that betting line.
Yeah, and that's why that was one of the reasons, and so we set up another rematch fight, and that was a month after. And again, I'm now, and it's with the same guy, obviously. And so now I'm training. I know what to train for. I know what to look for. And I get in there, I fight again, and I win the fight. And I just really wish that everybody can experience that once in their lifetime, to achieve something that they've been working on for so long. And that just cursed their mind for such a long time, because to me, being successful and achieving a goal is a curse. Being that type of individual where nothing else matters besides that one thing, it's a curse. But what can you do? Being competitive like that. But again, I just wish everybody can feel that feeling. It was like when I won that, I looked up in the stands, and I was just, it was like all this pressure and all this weight, all this anxiety just left,
It's everything you work for, man.
Right.
Everything.
Exactly. But that's also part of that underdog mentality, And so talking about the underdog, yeah, that's a great feeling to have that underdog mentality, and knowing that you have all these odds against you. You're this guy who has at that time I had about 45, 50 fights, and all of a sudden I'm beating this guy who has, I don't know, 200, 300 fights, who's been doing it for a very long fight. Yeah, right. Yeah. For a very long time. And so you have all these odds against you, and then you prevail, and what else is out there?
That's exactly my question. So it's your whole life. It's everything you've ever thought about. It's everything you've trained for. You climb the mountain, you get to the top, right. You win. You looked up in the crowd, as you said, you want everyone to feel that feeling of ecstasy right there in that moment. Awesome. Then what? Because so many people talk about that. They're like, okay, I reached it. And then what happens after that? Like, what is your mindset after that? Do you move a goalpost? Do you go eat bonbons on the couch? I mean, what do you do? What is that like for you?
You get very sad. People don't understand, like, as a fighter, and this is not just me, this is most fighters talk about this. After you have a fight and you win a fight, the next couple of days you're like in this very sad mood, because all that adrenaline, all that something that you've been working towards is all gone now. It's just like a huge dump down. Now you're just like, where's the next hit? Give me the next hit. Right. I need to get back in there as soon as possible and fight again, But for me, after I won that fight, I'm training for 17 years for that time. And the longest I've ever taken off was 2 weeks. And those 2 weeks that I've taken off was because I had to quarantine in Thailand for 2 weeks before I went outside into the country. Other than that, I was training for 17 years nonstop. The only time I would take a week off is after a fight, let my body rest. Sometimes I would be so upset with my loss, or if I needed to like work something, I would take a day off and get right back into the gym. So I was just so exhausted from all that, mentally exhausted. Like I was saying, all that anxiety, not being able to sleep, constantly thinking, am I going to get the shot? Are they going to think about me as I'm maybe like too old to get to the shot? I remember I was lying to some of these promoters. They would ask me, how old are you? I would be like, I would tell them like 10 years less, because I was just afraid that they would think like, oh, this guy's too old. We're not even going to take him seriously. Wow. I was thinking the craziest stuff, it was like all those things that were happening in your mind. And then you finally get to that point, and now it's like, damn.
Okay, so that's that moment, right? And I've heard that so many times. I mean, I remember seeing an interview with Tom Brady. I think it might have been after his 5th ring. And he was interviewed, and he goes, is this it? Like all that work, he goes,
Exactly.
is this really it? So I guess, can you share with us what is it that you did, say 2 weeks, 2 months after that moment to get out of that sadness and out of that funk? What do you do to get back on track? Do you choose something else? You're still fighting. You change the way. What do you do?
Well, a lot of it is just routine because, you know, you take that week off and then you get back into the gym and then you start training again and, you know, you feel good, you feel motivated and you're on like this high because now you're a legitimate champion in Thailand, you know, and people are stopping you on the street and saying, "Hey, I saw you fight," you know.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. But you do lose a certain part of that hunger, you know, and that's what happened to me. I lost my hunger. I started losing a lot of fights after that. And now it's just, again, I still love to fight, but I just don't have that hunger anymore. But I'm working towards that again to get back into that mentality, you know? And yeah, I mean, it comes and goes. So
Are you still fighting today?
yeah, I am.
You are. So you're still fighting. And are you training others?
Yeah, I'm still training others as well. Yeah.
Okay. And is that, I mean, I would find that to be a natural progression, right? Where you go from 17 years of training, I
Right.
reach a mountaintop, I'm the champ. Okay, I lose a little bit of that fire, that hunger inside of me. You want to get back to that.
Yeah.
You're still fighting. Can you transition that into a coach? Can you do that? I would think most do, or is that troublesome for you?
And how old?
Yeah,
how old are you now?
38.
Are you really 38, or are you telling us you're 38?
He's really 48. Best looking 48-year-old we ever sat down with.
Yeah, I'm 38, and of course you can transition into that. But what can come to that level of being in that ring and having another human being trying to take your head off? Nothing can ever come up to that level, you know? I don't care how many basketball games I go to and watch or even, let's say, if I went into the NBA, I'm just exaggerating, but the NBA will never come up to that. Number one, it's a team sport. You have other people to fall on. I need something. I need to like go on BMX riding or something where I know that I can risk my life and my life is at risk. You know what I mean? It's difficult to find something else, but I think I just need risk. That's what I've always been about, risking. And I never spent too much time thinking, which I don't know how intelligent that is either. But it was just like the less time I spend thinking about it, the quicker I can get to that place, you know?
Yeah.
So it was just go, not think too much.
I shared a podcast with Bill the other day that I was listening to. I listened to a lot of Ed Milet, and he was talking about these 4 Ds, and the last D was delay, and how that hurts so many people, right? Because I got to think about this, and I got to make sure it's perfect. And you just nailed his 4th D, where you said, I didn't think, I just went. And here I am talking to a 3-time world champ and a champ in Thailand because you did it. You just said, that's it. This is it. This is my DNA. I'm just going to do it.
Right. That reminds me of another thing. I remember people telling me like, oh man, you should read this book on mentality. You should read that book. I didn't read none of that shit. I didn't care about any. Why? It was all here already. I have it up here. Why would I need to listen to somebody else? I don't want to be poisoned with someone else's ideas. I have my own ideas, whether they're right or wrong. I'm doing it my way, and that's the only way that counts, and that's the only way that I want to do it. If it takes me a little longer to get to that point, then so be it. But I'm gonna do it my way, and that's the only way that I want it to be done. You know?
Yeah. Who do you think your number 1 competitor is?
I mean, it's always gonna be yourself.
I love it.
Yeah, it's always gonna be yourself, and your mind always makes things much worse than they actually are. You know, going back to that underdog mentality, when I would be fighting against these guys who have 150, 200, 300 fights, who are saying that they want to destroy me and kill me, and you know, you're coming in there and you just make this fight like, man, I had some crazy mental experiences fighting in Thailand where you had no idea who you were going to fight. You just end up figuring out like that day, you know? And then you end up looking at them and you see their legs and they're like huge legs. These guys are like ripped, no body fat on them. And you're just thinking in your mind like, man, this guy is going to kill me. He's going to destroy me. And then you get in the ring with him and then you fight him. And you're like, what was I so worried about? It's always, every single fight is absolutely like that, you know? And it's, your mind is literally can be your best friend and your worst enemy all at the same time. And so you have to take that, you have to be able to figure out a way to control that. And I always say, controlled fear is a very effective emotion. Uncontrolled fear is an extremely ineffective emotion. It's useless. You have to be able to figure out a way to control that. How do you figure that out? By just going in there and doing it.
That's it.
It's the only way.
Oh, that's wild, man. I know there's like turning points in people's lives and people's business. So we're going to start to come down the home stretch of this conversation with you. And in the Auxano Lounge, we always like to translate whatever experience someone has in a different aspect of life into the business world by creating these bridges, right? So I will just revisit something that you had just mentioned, and I had watched some fights in preparation for this conversation, and I think there was one that was, maybe the breakthrough of your career against a guy. It was Paurit Sasi Prapa, right? Who had over 300 wins. You were real fresh to that game. I think it was in Las Vegas, right? Yeah. And as I was watching this, any of you can watch this on YouTube. Really interesting fight. I'm not going to tell you what happens, although you might figure it out. But they were doing the interview before the fight, and they asked his opponent what his prediction is, and he said he was going to break your legs. And from the sound of the announcers, they believed that, right? And it was like, oh, poor. I think they called you Onion on that one. Poor Onion going in there. Do not pronounce your name that way. I know you said you don't care what people call you. I'm pretty sure that might not sit too well. And what happened in that fight was, I think, so eye-opening to the whole Muay Thai community based on what I think it was Pat Miletich had said and stuff during the fight, and just wild. That puts you on the scene. So there's this breakthrough, right? Yeah. And that might have been when you felt like you could go in the ring and actually, compete with these people. The path to getting there, though, is a lot of hard work that you might not necessarily love, right? So if we're translating this to people in business or to somebody outside of the fight game, to say all of these lessons, every word that you shared with us is completely translatable to the path to success, even to the point where you could have some amazing years in business. And if you watch the trend line of people who are really successful, it is like this. It's not like this. Mm-hmm. And so you have that fall off, and probably not the adrenaline dump of someone trying to actually kick your head into the crowd. But there is some association with feeling that success, building that up. And then it almost feels like, whew, you're back. Like, how do you get that energy to build that back up? But the basis of all of what I'm hearing weaved into this story is the training, how much you train, how much you focused, how much you used your mind. So is that something, can you just tell us a little bit about how impactful you feel that work ethic from that time where you said, I'm committing, how much did that work ethic impact that moment of triumph? And do you think you could have gotten there without putting in the time and doing a bunch of things that maybe you didn't enjoy? Maybe you did enjoy it. Maybe you do love training. I don't know. But can you maybe tie that together for us, for those listening who are maybe in a different world where it says, that's where I want to be. I'm not sure I'm going to love to do what it's going to take to get there. What does that look like?
Yeah, you're right with that. And I've been saying this for a long time, that how much I hate training. So when I first saw that fight, when I was 18 years old on ESPN, I didn't say, man, I can't wait to get in the gym and start training. My goal was, I can't wait to get in there so I can fight. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a fighter. But without the fight, without the training, there is no fight. So if you want to sell a house without the marketing, without, if you're a realtor, without the marketing, without the correct connections that you make, there's no sale, So you have to do those things that you don't necessarily like to do in order to get to that goal. When I first started, of course, I like training because everything was new. Now, the older that I get, I can't stand training. I hate it. I mean, there's aspects about training that are fun, the sparring and stuff like that. And if I'm not training for a fight, training is okay. It's fun. But when you're preparing for a fight, it just takes so much out of you physically, mentally. Who wants to do that? Who wants to subject themselves to 6 days a week, training twice a day, hitting those pads and getting your heart rate up to red zone, on a daily basis? Who wants to do that? I don't want to do that. I want to go on my couch and just watch TV and eat chips, or be on the computer. But these are things that you have to do in order to achieve that end goal, and that was my always my thing. Like, I didn't really make goals for myself. Again, that was like another thing from people who I feel like didn't really achieve much. I think they were just reading stuff, what they would read, but they would be like, oh man, you got to write everything down and look at your goals on a daily basis. Never did that. None of that. I had it all up in my head. I knew what I wanted to do. Maybe my first goal was, okay, I just want to be a fighter. Second goal was, I want to beat this guy. I want to get, I want to be that guy. Now maybe I can think about fighting for the title. So when I first started, it was always about being the best that I can be today and tomorrow, because I can walk outside right now and get hit by a bus and get killed. So why am I thinking so far ahead into the future? Yeah, I knew I was going to be a champion. Without a doubt, I knew that I was going to be a champion. But it was just about working today and tomorrow for that next day. So you have to do those things that you don't necessarily like in order to, achieve that goal.
Yeah. One foot in front of the other. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And you're probably a little bit of a rare breed where you say everything was just right up here.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's fair to say. Right. And usually the best of the best, as you are in your sport, usually they are a rare breed. They don't operate like everybody else. Right. Because there's not a million champions out
It's
there.
less than 1%.
Yeah. There's only one number one. You're in first place. Who's in first place? One.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the differentiating factor, is there's something that makes that person, that team, that organization different and separates them. That's what made you so different. You were so incredibly laser focused. You didn't need any outside influence or noise. It was just all you. You're a very rare breed. It
goes down to, the way I just set up my life. My whole life was set up around this sport, and it's just, if I had a girlfriend who wanted to spend more time, sorry, I got to get up the next day and train. Friends wanted to stay out. Sorry, guys, I can only stay out till about 10, because by the time I get home, it's about 10:30. Now I got to get ready for sleep, 10:45. By the time I get to bed, fall asleep, 11:45, 12. Now I got to wake up at 8 a.m. I need to have energy in order to train. That was my life. That was my life.
I want every young listener to get the wax out of your ears and listen intently right now to what you just said, right? With a young teenage boy who's maybe crafting his sport, or girl crafting her sport, right? And that boy or girl comes into their life and you said, no, I got to train. Everybody wanting to go out late at night. And you said, no, I got to get to bed. I got to get my rest. And that is where you have separation. Great story. Allen Iverson, basketball player, Philadelphia 76ers, wrote a letter to Kobe Bryant after he had passed. And in his letter, he tells the story of how they were playing each other and they're in the big city. And he's like, well, this is awesome. We're all going to go out to the club. And Kobe said, I'll see you tomorrow. And they're like, where are you going? AI's like, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to the gym. And it was at night. Yeah. He goes, what do you mean you're going to the gym? He goes, yeah, I'm going to go back to the gym and train. And so it was 9 or 10 o'clock at night going back to the gym to train, so that in the morning he would get up and he'd be in the gym training. But if he went to the club, he wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. That's what made him Kobe Bryant.
That's a good story. Something that I would do is, after I would come back home, and sometimes I would stay out late. I would end up staying out to about 1, 2 a.m. And then the next day, because I wanted to still go out. I needed to have a social life sometimes, Yeah. Most of the time it was all shut off, but every once in a while I would go out. So, but then guess what would happen the next day? I would still train no matter how tired I would. But the story about that is, I would deliberately park my car far away. Let's say we would all meet up at a friend's house. I would park it away, blocks away, and I would run after we would get out from the club or the bar, get back home. I would run back to my car just so I can feel that I accomplished something. Because to me, going out that late, didn't sit well with me mentally. So right away I'm thinking, okay, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing to get to that, goal and to be a good fighter. So now you got to punish yourself. Now you got to run. And I would be running in shoes sometimes, and I would run back. I don't know if this is true. Maybe this was a long time ago, but I feel like I may have even brought running sneakers with me, left them at my friend's house so I can take the shoes off, put the running sneakers on so I can run comfortably back in my jeans. That's what you have to do.
I love it. Love it.
And no book is going to write that for you. That was all up here,
Yeah.
No book is going to tell you that.
Now that there will be a book and that story will be in that book, brother, because people now hear your story, and that's the truth, right? Because I'm able to tell you a story that I listened to in a podcast about Allen Iverson talking about Kobe Bryant.
Right.
If he didn't tell that story, no one's going to know about it, right? And no one's going to be able to grab hold of it.
Right.
You telling that story, someone's going to grab a hold of that. They're going to reflect on it. They're going to remember it, and when they're in that moment, they're going to think of you. And, someday they're going to thank you. Maybe not in person. They're not going to know you, but they're going to think of you and thank you for helping them get to that next level.
Love that, man.
Right.
What I'm hearing a lot too, in everything that you're telling us, is that you keep it simple, right? You keep your life simple. Like a couple of times you said, I'm good. All I need is what's in this little bag, because your energy is here.
Yeah.
And I think in today's world, a lot of times I'm guilty of this too. There's so many distractions and so many things going on, and people sometimes correlate success with doing a million things.
Right.
There are some
Chaos.
super entrepreneurs out there who have mastered that, more so through delegation, which they don't talk a lot about, than kind of doing it themselves. And I think that then tells a lot of people, hey, I should be doing this and doing this and doing this and doing this. And what I'm hearing from you is that all along you knew in your mind, if you were doing that, and that you would have never, become the fighter that you actually were able to. And so that's one of the lessons that I take away. That's applicable across the board. Mm-hmm. So,
and it wasn't conscious. I never sat down and thought about, okay, this is what I need to do. It was all subconscious, I think. And it was just, all right, I just have to do the work. I got to put the work in. It's that simple. How difficult is that? I mean, we can all say that, right? We can all do that. That's not that difficult to figure out. You just got to put the work in. No matter how difficult it is, you have to go in there, do it, get it done, and then you'll get closer to that goal. And guess what? None of this is guaranteed, but you can always learn a lesson after, let's say you try to get to that and you're one step away from, I don't know, selling a house, and then you don't sell that house, and you come back to your table with your team or by yourself, whatever the case may be, and you say, okay, what did I do in this aspect? What did I do here? How was the marketing? How did I speak to the client? Was I approachable? What did I do here? There's always a way that you can adjust it and fix it. And that's exactly what I do with my fights. If I lose a fight, I come back, I watch the tape of the fight. If hopefully I have a recording of it, I go back and I say, okay, this needs to be changed. This needs to be changed. I go back to the gym the next time. I work on those changes. Next fight, those mistakes don't appear again. Maybe some new mistakes will appear, but not those same ones.
Right. Here's one, and we're probably nearing the end of our time together. So I got a question. You kind of were touching on it there. So let's just say you did break your leg. And let's say you couldn't, all your dreams, all your aspirations, all your training, everything you've ever thought about was to get in that ring and win that championship, right? Let's say something happens in your life and you can't. You can no longer be in that ring and do it. And I think a lot of people will encounter this for themselves. They strive, and then something in life happens because life happens. Mm-hmm. What would you do, and what advice can you give to people if you had that burning desire inside of you forever and ever? I don't think you would ever let your flame go out, because that's not who you are. So tell us, what would you do personally, and what would you recommend to that person who hits that, as you called it, a barricade that's truly immovable? And what would that be? If I'm a fighter, my leg busted in a million pieces and I can't ever do it, right? Like that. Talk to me about that.
Well, before I go into that, what I would do, I first want to talk about what's the best way to fix a problem. The best way to fix a problem is to prevent the problem. So I was a huge advocate about preventing things. So that's why I couldn't have a lot of fun. That's why I didn't do other extreme crazy sports, you know, like somebody wanted to go trail running. I'm not going no trail running, break my ankle. How am I supposed to fight, you know? So there was a lot of things that I didn't do just to prevent these certain situations from occurring, you know, like breaking a leg or, you know, something like that happening. But if that was to happen, yeah, I mean, that's difficult to, again, I have to just be, I would be thankful that I can at least still breathe, you know? And to me, life is a challenge. And that's why I love life so much, because you just never know. Like, to me, it's just, again, it's a huge risk that you're taking. So to me, okay, I can't use my leg anymore, but what can I do outside of that? Well, I can maybe still work that technique just with my upper body, get better with my upper body. I can maybe start speaking to people about things like this, being more prepared about negative aspects, what can happen, you know? But I think preventing is that key word that has really helped me out. And yeah, I've had injuries. I've fought with broken knuckles, broken hands, you know? I've trained with all that stuff.
How many stitches have you had in your career?
I don't know how many stitches, but a lot.
If you had to guess.
I don't know, over 100 probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had over 100 in that one fight in Connecticut, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's
unbelievable.
As well. Fascinating stuff. Anytime we get the chance to sit down with you, I think, you know, to me, the big story, and that's why here we started with this big story, to take an 18-year-old that's so behind the ball, that watches something on TV and ends up, you have fought the best of the best in this. You have stepped in the ring with them, and you've held your ground. You've won a bunch of those, which is just wild when you think of the progression of that. We're not even talking about in a lifetime. We're talking about in just a few decades, all stemming from that intense focus and your ability to share with us and with everybody listening today what makes you special to achieve those things. I think, you know, might very well unlock a lot of things for some other people that may have some of those same feelings and emotions, but question whether that's the right direction. And maybe they are listening too much to some other people, not advocating for not listening to your parents, right? I was the best listener to my parents always, every day. But
no sarcasm there at all.
Yeah. I want to thank you for taking the time, you know, to sit with us today and share some of these stories that few people can relate to, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing, from leaving everything you knew to going into a place where you don't even speak a language, and boom, you're in it, and somehow corralling all of that experience into not just achieving something that most people could never achieve, but to through the way that you have done it, teach people how to approach things that might allow them to benefit from some of the crazy circumstances that you were put in. So thank you again for joining us. Ron, as always, you know, awesome job here, pulling all the good stuff out of our guest. And to those of you who are just starting to plug in, we thank you for taking your time to join us. We hope that you continue to take the information that comes out of the Auxano Lounge, apply it to your business, apply it to your life, apply it to your family, as we all go on this path to be the best version of ourselves. Have a great day, everybody.